You know what? I think what you just said is absolutely brilliant. And I'm envisioning that guy sitting there listening to this right now. And I guess what I would say to that person is this: if you're afraid to scale, if you're hesitant to make that next step that little voice in the back of your head is telling you ought to be making, and this is going to be hard for some people to process and hard for some people to let ring true in their mind. But if you're scared, it's because you forgot your why. You forgot what was driving you to make that decision when things weren't safe, when you were working for someone else. Like, so many guys get in the routine of just going to work and creating a good life. Like, most of the guys who are listening to this probably have a very good life. I don't pursue a good life. I pursue a great life. My expectation for myself in this world is to give so much value that I leave some kind of a legacy for my family. And I had to go through some pretty intense things to learn what my why was. But that to me, like every single one of these guys needs to look in the mirror and get really real and raw with themselves and say, why do I carry this stress? Why did I start this company? Why? They're listening to this because they care and they want to be better, but they've got to add that fuel. And the fuel is they've got to associate so tightly with their why that if they'll be vulnerable and share their why with you, like when I share my why with people, I get choked up. And I'm a guy's guy, right? Like you're not going to catch me crying at a movie, like that's not the way that I roll. But when I share my why, it's tied so close to my heart chords that I just think if I let my why down, whatever that is, whatever your why is, if I fail that why, would that be worse than if I fail on this attempt to scale a little bit? Because you can
it's a great baseline, because if you're sitting there and you know your why, not knowing how to scale in 3 new markets, not knowing anything about direct response or how to tap into SEO, is just a small hurdle, because you're tapped into that core value of what you're delivering. And I'm sure you ran into that.
100%. Yeah, I lost sight of my why for a long time. I got burnt out. I sold every company I had in 2014. I took 2 years off thinking I've retired. This is awesome. Everything I wanted in life, I got to retire, I got to do that thing. And it was the most, it was great for me and my wife, but it was the most miserable 2 years of my life internally. And so for me, I just know what that feels like. To me, that's the ultimate play it safe. We had enough cash flow coming in. My bills were paid. I didn't have to worry about anything. And I know what that safety net feels like. And it's not where I want to be. So for me, the legacy piece, and when you're talking about, lots and lots of people can teach mechanics of scale. And mechanics of scale is crazy crucial. But if your mind's not right, the mechanics don't matter. Because you'll sabotage yourself as you're beginning the scale process like you're talking about. There are just 3 different things you could do to grow your market, to reach new potential customers, to upsell current customers, to take, if you're in the chimney sweep business, right? Why would you not show up to every single one of those houses with an infrared gun and offer to do a heat study on the home? It's only $179, but we're gonna map out a 12-month process for making your home airtight, so that we're gonna fix your stove, we're gonna clean up here, we're gonna do whatever we do, we're gonna fix your chimney, whatever. But why would you not take, there's so many ways to mechanically scale and grow. You just have to get off even, get out of your comfort zone and take the step. Don't take such a big step that you could sink your business, be strategic, but just do something and do it today. Stop putting it off till tomorrow. Run for it.
And it sounds like what you're saying, Michael, it's almost a disservice not to do that to the customer. If you truly believe in the company, you truly believe in the product that you're offering, it would be equivalent to the doctor giving you half a physical.
Oh, right.
And not telling you what's coming. You know what I mean? So if the value that you have, the value of the customer, you gotta do what's best for them, or you shouldn't be offering the product in the first place.
So I love this, right? Your gifts will make room for you. And so you've been given a gift. Like every one of these guys, they have the ability to manage people. They're in an industry that they at some point were extremely passionate about and probably still are. And you're exactly right. Every time you ignore that little voice in the back of your head that says you ought to try this, or you ought to do this, or you ought to promote this, or you ought to step out and go do this. Every time you don't do that, you rob the world of your gift. And like, how would you feel if you knew that like 2 doors down, there's this guy that could greatly improve the quality of your life, but he played it safe, and so you never got to hear about it?
Right.
Like, just reverse that. Like you have this operation, this business, this team, and you're being selfish. Step out and share it.
It's not about being pushy or sales on a sales call. Like you said, if you have the infrared gun, you know this affects the customer in a certain way. It's a belief. Your belief pattern is causing the customer to get an inferior product.
100%.
And some guys just wish that they don't want to come off as salesy with their team or things like that. And it's just I think it comes back to that core belief, that core message, and the why, like you said.
100%. Like, you know, and you just touched on something that I could take up an entire hour on so easily. If you're in business for yourself and you don't want to be in sales, it's time to go get hired on the railroad. Like, every single business sells a product or service. All you have to do is be able to justify your value. And if you believe in your product and you believe in your service, then you're doing a disservice. You're robbing people of your gifts by not offering them. You're right. Don't be pushy. You don't have to but if you believe that there's true value in what you're offering, if your team, and this is a hard thing that I go through often. When I push my team to add additional products to, and we've done this across every industry that I've ever been a part of, when we push our teams to add additional products, I inevitably have to shed 5 to 10% of my team because they don't have the capacity to mentally grasp the vision. And I want people who are on fire for what we're doing for our customers. And if you don't believe, if you're at a point where you're selling something you don't believe in, you shouldn't be selling it anyway. If you don't believe in your service, you should be doing it anyway. But there's tons of opportunity to add additional value to what you're doing, grow your market. First of all, before you try to grow deep, take your current customer base and find where they're lacking in value. Find where your competition's not taking them deeper and showing them, hey, here's something else that my team will do for you. And if you can schedule it up and create some mailbox money, I know that most of the guys in the service industry are pretty cyclical.
Right.
So if you can come up with something that connects that customer to you monthly or quarterly, make it easy for them so that the money just withdraws out of their account, but they know what they're getting. You get a notice, money out, go do your thing, and you create that steady flow. You do 2 things. 1, you add a ton of value to the customer, and 2, you add a ton of loyalty to that relationship between the customer and you. So that, I just think, and this works across any industry, not just service, not just, retail. It works across every single industry.
Michael, I think tapping into that uniqueness and that core value kind of also functions as a marketing angle for that particular business. And for you, with your automotive group, it says you have an emphasis on family, for example. Mm-hmm. And tell me a little bit about how, let's say, just moving along the story a little, you found yourself looking to get into something, and I'm not quite sure how you made the decision to start the used car business, but maybe you can share a little bit about that and how the emphasis of family and the experience. It sounds like you're using experience as a differentiator from a CarMax, so to speak.
For sure.
Tie us into that and what guided you to that point.
So two things happened, and one of these is, again, a very long story that I'm going to try to condense down. My wife, whenever I had, quote, retired, sent me an email that I got one morning. I woke up and I had this link, and I tell this story in a lot more detail in the book, but I got this link inside of Facebook Messenger, and I clicked on it. It was some guy yelling on a bridge in Las Vegas that told me that I was a big D-bag and that I was probably a one-dimensional man at best. Maybe I was fit, maybe I was good at business, maybe I was good at family, maybe I was good at faith, but more than likely I wasn't good at all of them, and that there was a way to have it all. And so I trucked out to, it was an expensive week. It was 10 grand for a week, but I trucked out to Orange County, California, Laguna Beach, and found myself in the middle of what's kind of a mix between Tony Robbins and Fight Club. No, I'm serious. Like, and look, I'll pimp them out because it's a great thing. It's called Wake Up Warrior. Check it out. It's cool. But I went out there and we were told to show up in combat boots, BDUs, and a black t-shirt, black head to toe, no watches, no rings, nothing, and come stand in formation and get ready because like they wanted us to recite this poem called Invictus, and we had to do it with guys running around screaming at us and like trying to get us amped up, and really it felt very much like basic training. And in that experience, they blindfolded us and took us onto a bus and bussed us to, at the time, I God knows where. And they unloaded us blindfolded and they walked us out onto a grinder mat. And this grinder mat, it's a workout mat on a concrete slab, but they just started drilling us. Push-ups, sit-ups, burpees, jumping jacks, more push-ups, more sit-ups, air squats, go. And started like spraying us with a fire hose while we're doing it. And just like, it was crazy. While this guy, the guy that I recognized his voice from the video, is talking to us over a loudspeaker, talking about how we're broken as men and how we've systematically conditioned ourselves to be weak and to not go after the hunt any longer. And you know, because like we're lions, we're hunters. And so what happens is people get complacent because the lion's getting fed enough to keep them complacent. And so he's talking about you guys might financially be fine, but the lion in you's dying. And so I had went out there because my thought was I'm gonna figure out what I want to do in business next. And so they grabbed me and they like trucked me over somewhere. They like I heard them taking people all around me, and I wasn't sure what was going on. And I thought, well, maybe they forgot me. And then this guy whispers in my ear. He says, "You didn't think I forgot you, did you?" And so he takes me over, like leads me. I'm blindfolded still, and he says, "Why are you here?" And I said, "I'm here for business." And he goes, "Cool. Take your left foot and lift it up for me and take a step forward." And so I stepped forward into an ice bath, up to my knees, ice water. And he said, "Why are you here?" And I gave another variation of the same answer. Okay, right foot this time. And he said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Because I want to figure out a way to scale and make money again." And he goes, "Okay, go on ahead and have a seat." And he puts his hand on my shoulder and kind of shoves me neck deep. So now I'm up to my neck in ice water, and not ice cold water. I'm talking about bags of ice in the water. And if you've never done this before, like before ice water numbs you, it hurts.
Absolutely.
So I'm physically exhausted from the workout we've been doing for the last hour and a half. I'm wet. I don't feel good. Now I'm cold. Now I'm in pain. I have all these different things going on. And they say, "Why are you here?" And I said, "I want to grow a big business again." And they take this bucket, they dip it down into the ice water, and they start pouring it on the crown of my head.
Oh, man.
Now I'm blacking out. Like I feel the loss of vision happening around my eyes, and I'm like I have ice chips hitting the top of my head out of the bucket. Water's pouring down all over, and through all this, like everything kind of behind starting to go silent because I'm about to pass out. But one voice I hear again: "Why are you here?" And I screamed, "I don't know what the F you want me to say." And they lifted the blindfold, and in front of me, like as close to my face as they could get it, was an iPad with Facebook open and a picture of my family. And in that moment, I just whispered, "I'm here for them." And so they lifted me out of the ice bath. Of course, I started to crumble down, and they grabbed me and they pulled me back up, and And they said, that's your why. And so for me, that was the process that I went through to discover my why. I went out there to figure out what I wanted to do in business next. And at the end of that week, all the way at the end, my mind shifted the entire week. I stopped thinking about what am I going to do in business? How am I going to add value in business? How am I going to, I know the mechanics of scale, but I wanted to make sure that I got into something that would serve me and allow me to be a blessing to people. I didn't need the money anymore. And so through the end of the week, I was sitting at a table and I heard a bunch of guys kind of chatting around. And one of the guys was talking about being in the car business, and I overheard kind of his motto a little bit. And I thought, I could do that. And so I came back, and when you're talking about stepping out of your comfort zone, we had built our dream home. We had residential and commercial properties. We had a small stake in a trucking company. We had multi-unit buildings. We had a restaurant. We had lots of positive things happening inside of my world. And when I came home, I said, we live 2 hours from Kansas City in the middle of nowhere. But I knew that if I was going to build another business, I needed to be where there was population. And so I came home and within 30 days suggested to my wife that we sell absolutely everything and move to the city, that I wanted to open a car dealership. And so we did it.
What was her first reaction?
Lots of tears. No, you know, part of it's this, right? And that question tells a lot about most people's relationships with their significant others. Like before you can have an ask like that, before you can make a withdrawal that big, you have to, on the front side of that, make a ton of deposits.
Yep.
And so one thing that I have always my wife, from walking away from the railroad, one of our friends at church pulled her aside and said, you're going to have to trust in the God-given wisdom that Michael has and follow him and support him if you really want him to scale and grow. And she needed to hear that, and I needed to hear that. I needed to hear how this life could work. And it's just the opposite way too if it's a female-owned business, right? Like whoever that entrepreneur is, they deal with so much, they carry so much weight. So if you go to work and go to war, and then you turn around and go home and go to war, like I feel so sorry for you. But probably that's happening because you forgot your why. And you haven't been investing and depositing. So that way when you come home and you say, hey, I've got this vision, she's not operating from a basis of fear and loss, or he's not operating from a basis of fear and loss. Your spouse is supportive because they know that if you're saying this is what we ought to do next, it's because you've thought about it. You've invested in it. And you're standing high enough with your eyes open enough. You're that lion in the pride standing on the hill looking around thinking this is where we're going to go hunt next. And they follow you. They trust in you. Your team follows you. They trust in you. But you have to act like a lion before you get followed like a lion.
Needless to say, you got your money's worth that weekend, man. And
man,
that's amazing stuff.
Yeah,
and emphasis on family. Let me ask you. So with your automotive group now, and where things are going with that in the future, how are you pulling that in to position your sales team, or tell us a little bit about your sales operation and separating yourself from, like I said, from the car maxes and things like that.
For sure.
From what I understand, used car sales are record high last year, right? So tell us a little bit how that's impacting you guys and dealing with the big brands. So
we came into the business with kind of a Walmart mentality of sorts. From a margin standpoint, I believe that overall big car dealerships are extremely greedy. The average profit for a big new car store, you've heard the expression, casinos aren't built on the backs of winners, right? Like when you walk into how big and gorgeous and beautiful a casino is, it clicks. Wow, they're making a lot of money. A lot of people are losing. Well, one of like other than churches, one of the biggest, most beautiful buildings that are being built in the world right now are car dealerships. When you look at the amount of money that's spent in them. And so for me, I just felt like, okay, that's broken. So what I did was intentionally, I bought if you look at my building and listen to my story, you wouldn't believe me. You would think, why in the world would this guy office out of this little shack of a dealership? But I wanted to keep my overhead extremely low so that I could pass that on to the customers. And when I say treating people like family, it's what we do. Like that's our tagline. That and hashtag we say yes KC if you want to see some of the happy customers. But from a sales standpoint, we just went into it with just a mindset of we're not going to play games. We're not gonna lie. If we have to lie to sell cars, I don't want to be in the car business. And that one principle, like just telling the truth, sets me apart from 90% of automotive dealerships. And it took some time. We were heavy marketing early on. For the first 6 months, but the first 6 months we only marketed Facebook. Like if you're not using Facebook for marketing, you are leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on the table. Like that would be if you're thinking, man, I really need to scale my business, I need to grow my business, and you're not using Facebook marketing or paying a firm to do Facebook marketing for you, which is probably the smarter idea, you're missing out. Because that's how we grew our business for the first 12 months. Inside of growing the sales team, what I've done is I've done every position for 4 to 6 months. Once I feel like I know that position better than absolutely anyone else possibly could, I would hire somebody to replace me and graduate myself to a different position. So,
how long were you doing everything yourself, and then how many people?
So it was my daughter and myself starting out.
Okay.
And we hired a technician. So the technician was the first person we hired. And of course, I did not do that job for 6 months. That's, surround people who are better at you in areas that you're not gifted. So for me, I wasn't a technician. So we hired him, and then I did 100% of the sales and 100% of the vehicle purchasing for the first 6 months.
Got it.
I had a lot to learn. Not just how to communicate with people without throwing up a bunch of red flags, but also just how to handle financing. And I had to acclimate to how to get banks to say yes. And I had to learn, had to take some lumps on the head and learn the ins and outs of credit applications and credit bureaus. And there was just a lot because I didn't have any experience in any of it. Earlier I mentioned I'm in the process of making the biggest decision I made in the dealership, and I still get a little anxious. I realized for me to scale to the next level that I'm going to have to hire a guy that I'm going to have to pay twice as much as I pay myself to put him in the seat to do the job that I do now.
Operations, yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's got 20 years of car dealership experience and had actually left the automotive world on the sales side. I went to work he was one of our vendor reps. And coming in and out, we just talked about his life experience, and he got a taste of our culture, and he got to see behind the curtain a little bit and see that we were really having conversations about, is that the best thing for the customer? Because I'll turn somebody away if I think it's going to sink them. I'm not operating from a place of scarcity. So if I make $1,500 less money, but I go to sleep that night knowing that I did the right thing, it's just so valuable. And he heard those kind of conversations. And so I thought it was going to take around $100,000 to hire this guy. I was 50% there. So, think about small business, right? We're a small business. We've got 75 cars on our lot. We've got a team of 6 now or 7. And I'm talking about hiring one guy that the payroll for the other 5 or 6 employees equals just his. But those are the moves that you have to be willing to make. I just made the decision yesterday that I'm going to do it. And in fact, my good buddy Jake Loeffler, shot me a text message when I was kind of whining about having to make the decision, and it just simply said, "Do it." And it's so powerful. I needed to hear that and be reminded of that, because for me, you're not doing anyone a service by holding on to the reins. In fact, you're probably taking valuable time away from you and your family. So, like, to me, once I set in to do it, it's like, okay, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to put somebody in the seat that allows me the freedom to back up and look at the global landscape of Munsterman Automotive Group, see where we're missing opportunities, see where I can develop strategic relationships with bigger dealerships, buying their trade-ins or whatever, and then approach additional lenders who have better buy programs, who will offer cheaper interest rates, who whatever. Like, but I can step back and run the company instead of operate the company.
Isn't it something, because the actual decision, your why, right? Your focus ultimately gave you that comfort, that spark, I should say, make that decision. That, because without that, you're not even thinking replace myself. You certainly aren't thinking replace myself at twice the price that I thought I would. And without that why. And that, just having that tied in, I can see it, Michael. Like, this is another step along the storyline that you've probably made this decision before in different variations in the past, where you go and you look back like, had I not done that at the fork in the road, there's no way I could have seen what comes next.
Well, and it all maps out to a much bigger vision, and so. I'm constantly looking 36 months ahead, but you're exactly right. My vision for 36 months involves me being freed up to have a balance of, I went from working my tail off every single day to being, quote, retired, and realizing that was the polar opposite of where I'm comfortable and happy, to now recognizing that my why is I want to be with my family and give my family I want to make a generational impact. It's why I'm launching the podcast. It's why I wrote the book. It's why we do what we do on social media. I want to make a generational impact. What the car business is, the bigger vision, is a case study. At the end of the day, this dealership, I recognize that the car business is broken nationally. And this little dealership's giving me the knowledge base to educate consumers on how to buy cars and how not to buy cars. And so the biggest play in this is creating content that shows customers nationwide how to buy cars. So instead of trying to sell 100 cars to the greater Kansas City marketplace, my value add in the automotive industry will be to educate hundreds of thousands of people on how to buy cars successfully, save tons of money doing it. But that's, 36 months from now. Leading into that, on the front side of that, there's a lot of work that has to be done. And there's a lot of critical steps that have to be taken. And so it goes back to what Grandpa said. You have to walk with your eyes open. Not just today, but looking ahead at where do you want to be? Why are you doing this?
And I don't want that point to go missed, because selling and increasing sales through education, I believe, I'm a firm believer, is one of the biggest things a small business can do. It's a differentiator. It provides value first, and it just sets you apart in the marketplace. And I have no doubt that once you get to that point where that's scaled and you're doing that, and you become that source of knowledge for customers, that it's just the next logical decision to go through you for that purchase. And I think a lot of folks can leverage that same concept, whether you're in HVAC, plumbing, roofing. Tell your customers what not to what they should be looking for. Help them make the decision, add value with content, and then let the sales process sort of take care of itself.
100%. Lots of guys are following Gary Vee right now. And one of the things that I love about that dude is that if you're not, it's Gary Vaynerchuk. Look him up. He's really intelligent, good businessman. But he talks this one point I hear him say over and over and over again, and I think it's something that a lot of entrepreneurs have wrong. His point is, give your stuff away. like everybody operates in this concealed place where they feel like I've got to keep industry secrets, or what we're doing internally, it's got to be hush hush. The fact is, when you educate your customers, they trust you. You telling them what to look for in their house, or you walking in and saying, I could charge you for this, but literally you just need to change your filter. If you want, I can do it. Here's what it'll cost. But if not, high five, have a great rest of your day. You just like the lifetime value of that customer just shot up so dramatically. We had a guy that did that for me just the other day, where our AC wasn't working very well, and he comes over and he came in and he goes, look, I could charge you for what I need to show you, but instead I'm just going to show you so you don't ever have to call us for this again. And walks me outside and just shows me I need to have one of my guys power wash our AC, whatever it is, the box outside.
Right.
Your guys know. I don't know. But I had no idea. Like, it's going to bother me. Is that the condenser? Yeah. Whatever it is. Like, he's like, look, you've got debris in here, and that's what's hurting your system. But he didn't charge me for that. But like in the future, when something else does go wrong, or when I scale and I need, we just bought a building back behind that we're building out a much larger full service center with alignment racks, tire machines, everything we need to scale and open up to the community. When I'm ready for AC and inside of that part of that's the dude I'm going to call.
Wouldn't go anywhere else.
Wouldn't even think about it because he gave up $100 service call.
And I think that's a huge connection that a lot of folks are missing. And does that tie into, I see you have a loyalty program with the automotive group. How does that tie in with what you're doing now?
So I spend most of what we do internally is focus on customers who have absolutely, like, they're credit criminals. They have terrible credit. And some of them are major repeat offenders. And so much of it is just because no one's, it's true, man.
Sorry.
Like, if there were a prison for credit, like, I hang out with those guys. I'm like their probation officer almost.
Okay.
But what I give them, and I'll talk about the loyalty program too, but what I give them, I spend time with my customers. I train my people to spend time with my customers, talking to them about how to repair their credit. Like, the process, like, buying a car can be checkers when you have poor credit, or buying a car can be chess. And so I try to show people a bigger picture. Like, okay, yeah, I know you want the Denali, but maybe we ought to think about the Malibu. Like, and here's why. You got 48 months of payments in this great big expensive thing, or you've got 12 months of payments in this one. 12 months of payments in this one shows a paid auto on your credit, and your score's up 100 points, and then you don't need to come back here. I want you to. But if you don't, I understand, because now you'll have options. And so I'm giving, and I give that advice on the front side. It's not like I have that conversation once they buy the car, because I want them to know, like, if I don't have the right car, I'm not going to pressure you. I'm not going to push you. Here's my background. Here's a little bit about us. Here's our mission statement internally. And if we're not your right guys, high five. Maybe next time, if you need somebody to help you with service, or if you find one somewhere else and you need, they won't give you the Carfax, or they won't give you the values, call us. We'll help you. Like, at the end of the day, we'll just do whatever we can to make this a better experience for you, and just keep us in mind next time. And what's funny is, I've offered that maybe 500 times and had one person take me up on it. One person call me and say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not looking at one of your vehicles. You don't have what I'm actually looking for. But this dude at this car dealership's playing games with me and won't give me the Carfax. So it had been wrecked like 3 times. And so, like, good on him for checking with me. It saved him some money. But anyway, like, that's what you have to do. You have to be willing. Again, we're back to making deposits before you can make withdrawals. You can't operate from a place of scarcity.
From being another used car dealership to the guy who's actually a step on the ladder to their credit recovery.
Exactly.
To getting that lower end car, boosting that beacon score, and then having more options than they would have if they got the Denali.
100%.
The price on that service.
And so here's how we justify. Because look, there are some times that we make a really good profit on selling a car. We just do. Yeah. But sometimes that's because I bought it really cheap, or it wasn't working right. My technicians figured out what the fix was, and it cost less than what we thought it was going to cost. So, like, I don't give those vehicles away. But I'm not selling a car I'm selling value to this person's life. I'm selling them a means from getting them from their house to work, to pick up their kids after school in something that's reliable and dependable. From guys who will be here when you need them 30 days later, 3 months later, 3 years later. You're going to have a place you can come back to where you feel safe, where you don't feel pressured. Nobody in my service department's paid on commission. I don't want any, like you used a doctor reference earlier. Could you imagine going to a doctor's office knowing that the doctor's paid on commission? Like, what would that alter the way that you think about how you go to the doctor? Because most dealerships, like 95% of them, they pay commission every step of the way. So this is one of the greatest secrets how I do what I do inside of service. I don't pay anybody commission, so they're not incentivized to take advantage of you at all. I don't bonus them for profitability. I don't do anything to incentivize them. They have one directive: fix the customer's car at a fair price, and don't let it come back. Like, just fix it right the first time. Done.
And being able to do that, and you incentivize, it naturally sparks other people to go through your program, and the referrals become something that's just an organic type of process. And I'm sure that you get plenty of those.
100%. Like, so we tell our customers, if you send somebody in and they get approved for a car and choose to buy it, we'll give you $100 cash as a thank you, really just to show you how much we care that you're out there advertising for us. And I think in the last 18 months, we've probably spent around $10,000 in $100 bills.
Wow.
Like, with a lot of referrals.
So now with the decision happening, and you're going to soon be replacing yourself in this business, and actually taking that catbird seat, being able to scale, and with a much broader view. What's the plan next, Michael? After that, is there a certain like how are you treating the milestones for this business, and is there an exit strategy? I mean, as much as you can say, you know.
Sure. So for me, as we bought this new service center, again, I think that you are at a disadvantage if you don't know how to run every part of your company. And so the next 6 months for me will be educating myself on the service side of the business. Mm-hmm. I'll spend a copious amount of time in service, making sure that we're building out proper processes, that we're ticketing, that communication from the new building to our core staff here in our existing location is correct. Everything will be very mechanical for the next 6 months. And then the only role inside of daily operations will be as an advisory to the new position that I'm filling, and to the sales team. And then I'll still be the guy that's acquiring inventory. But all of this is just to pull back. And then I'll eventually hand those individual keys over. The next person that I will hire will be a service manager. Next key person to replace myself. And then from there will be a large step back and a bigger focus on scaling. In our business, there are two ways you can go. Way number one is you can go wide. You have 600 cars and you sell 300 to 400 of them a month, or you have 100 cars and you turn them a couple times a month, or you sell 100 every single month over month. But in my industry, there are a lot of really good people that can't get approved because of life. And so when I say we're going to probably go deep, my long-term play in this business will be to do a lot more buy here, pay here. And again, doing that different than the guys that are out there just absolutely gutting people.
Right.
So we'll do it from a place of integrity and build that model to truly, again, it all falls back to the same thing. I keep saying it: be a blessing to people, adding value to their lives and getting compensated directly proportionally to the amount of value we add.
Those are three distinctly different businesses within one business you have there. So I can imagine how complicated. I mean, you're talking service business, the sales business, and then the holding the paper, the finance business, and juggling those things. And I think it's just brilliant the way that you put a focus on getting the plate, spinning plates, get one spinning at a time, and then move on to the next, master the next one, and not trying to bite it all off at one time. And I think a lot of folks can learn from that.
You've heard the expression, the man that hunts two rabbits gets none.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. And it's exactly what you're talking about. Like, you have to pick one thing and run at it, and when you get it, then find somebody to stay on that, and then you go catch that other rascally rabbit.
That's awesome. Michael, I think that there was a lot of golden nuggets in this. And one of the things we usually do is go back and try to get your biggest takeaways in life. But we're gonna change the name of the segment to Grandpa's Nuggets, because
cool.
It's fitting. So in this space of time where you've made this huge transition, you've done, I mean, the cycles that you've described here are, 5 times what many folks would experience in one lifetime, and you're just getting started, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
In that process, give us one of the Grandpa's Nuggets that impacted you the most, if you haven't already.
Yeah. Like, I think that I skimmed over it super quick, but this was the number one best piece of advice. You know that really hard day that Grandpa said, if you ever leave your job, don't come back.
Yeah.
He said something else in that really changed everything for me. He said, I'm not saying keep the same job, stay in the same lane. I'm saying just recognize that your next move creates better opportunity and take it. Don't be afraid. Don't be that. And again, he was in the bait business. He's a country boy. He said, don't be that bullfrog that just sits on one lily pad its whole life. Be willing to take that leap. And to me, that's it. That's, you guys, like, every single person that's listening to this, like, every one of them knows the thing that they ought to be doing. And it's really just a matter of taking the leap. Intelligently, but like, just not being, like, you should train yourself to be uncomfortable when you're comfortable. Because the second that you look in the mirror, and I had a business partner that said this, and I knew it was the beginning of the end for him being my partner one time. He said, man, we've made it. And to me, like, that's like swearing in church. You do not, you've never ever arrived until you've died.
Right.
Like, when you decide, okay, I'm there, you've already lost, because some guy like me is going to come in and disrupt your market and disrupt your business and be better at it and be more passionate about it. And at the end of the day, the guy that wakes up and thinks every single day when his feet hit the floor and he thinks, I'm going to war today, because there are other guys right now who are waking up thinking about how they can kick my ass. The guys who fail or who get stagnant or who become irrelevant, those guys are the guys that wake up every day and think, man, my back kind of hurts. I don't want to get out of bed today. I'm like, and just, you know what I'm talking about.
Complacency kills, man.
Oh, man. So all you got to do is just, like Grandpa's advice there, right? Like, so simple. You know what you need to do next. Don't be afraid to leap.
And for folks that want to get in touch with you and get more of this and reach out to you and not necessarily to buy a product or anything like that, but if you can't tell already, Michael is value first, right? And he has probably way more than we could ever cover in a 5-hour segment.
I appreciate it.
In this particular segment itself. And Michael, where can they reach out to you and tell us a little bit more about the book that's coming out in your podcast? Sure.
Okay, so the podcast is Money Moves with Michael Munsterman. Just in the last 12 months or so, we've had lots of people that have encouraged my wife and I to stop being hermits inside of our entrepreneurial experience. And so it was Gary Vee that said to me that I'm one of the most selfish business people he'd ever met, because I wasn't sharing my experiences. And so I met with him the first part of May out at VaynerMedia in New York. And And so I decided coming out of New York that I was going to write a book and I was going to start a podcast to help entrepreneurs get from where they are to scale the next level. And so the book is called Savvy. Grandpa, at the end of every lesson he gave me, he'd look me dead in the eyes and he would just say, "Savvy lad, like, do you understand? Do you get it?" And so just kind of in honor of him and what he's done for me in my life, I titled the book Savvy. And so the best way to follow me is going to be to jump on Instagram or Facebook. It's Michael Munsterman. It's just all spelled out. I've got a public figure page on, I look kind of like a dork because I'm a public figure on Facebook with 2,000 likes or something small. But Instagram's kind of the same way, but it's at Michael Munsterman. And like what I do with those platforms, again, is just give value. Like, I'm just talking about my journey. I'm sharing little nuggets about what we're doing, but that's where you'll find the link to the book. That's where the podcast is actually going to launch here in the next 2 weeks or so. We're doing the first 6 episodes. So you'll hear some of the stories I shared today on there, but that's, long term. This is a build up so that I can start working directly with entrepreneurs. And if you've got questions specifically, or if you want to talk to me about possibly coaching or spending some time with you on a professional to professional level, just DM me, direct message me inside of Instagram.
So we'll put links right below this session, and for anyone to go for all of those, and they can follow up with you. Now, before you go, Michael, we like to end with one question. Typically, how old are you again, Michael?
I'm 38.
38. So heading back to, let's say, 18-year-old Michael, 20-year-old Michael, what advice would you give yourself, knowing what you know now, to that individual, to that young lad?
Yeah, yes.
What would you tell that guy heading forward into the future?
Yeah, you should have sent me that ahead of time, because I'd probably talk to young Michael for about 6 hours.
Well, that's why we save it for the end.
Yes, yeah. So for me, I want to be really just mindful of this answer because I think it's critical. I think that the advice that I would give young Michael is figure out what you're passionate about, what you care about, because more than likely where your passion and your heart lies, in that same spot's where you'll find your gifts. And then just work your ass off. Like, just get up every single day and literally think, everyone in my industry is trying to beat me, and don't get beat.
That's it. It's as simple as that.
Simple as that.
Listen, Michael, I really appreciate it, man. There was a ton of value there. And like we said, we're going to put the links below this session. I look forward to speaking to you again. There's a lot you and I could talk about. And
for sure.
Like I said, but I appreciate the time. And I'm sure a lot of folks will find a lot of value in not only the marketing lessons, but the positioning, being able to position their businesses from a standpoint of providing value first, following their core essence, and understanding their why and integrating that in their business. Just going to make a lot of decisions for them a lot easier, for them to kind of take that next leap without fear. So I really appreciate the time, buddy, and we'll talk soon.
Hey, thanks so much.